lesson, correlation analysis, our focus is to find out the association of variables. We want to find out to what extent are these variables relating to one another? Are they influencing one another? And the advantages of this is we want to establish associations between variables. For example, in our previous example, we're talking about teenage pregnancy. So we're saying, are there associations between age and likelihood of teenage pregnancy? Are there an association between age, and teenage pregnancy? So we want to look at that. Now, before we proceed, let's look at the scale of interpretation of correlation analysis. The scale runs from 0 to 1. 0 meaning there is a weaker positive correlation, and that's about 0 to 0.4. And from about 0.4 to 6, then we have a moderately strong positive relationship. But as we move from 0.7 to 1, then we have a stronger relationship. And this relationship, we are saying positive, which means that the variables are relating to each other. As one variable increases, the other variable also increases. We can actually say the higher you go, the hotter it becomes. So as you increase in height, then the heat also will actually attract you. Of course, this is not scientifically correct. Now, the other part of correlation analysis is where we are looking at the inverse relationship, which runs from 0 to -1. And in this case, still from 0 to 0.4, you have a weaker inverse relationship. And from 4 to about 6, you have a moderate negative or inverse relationship. As you move further to -1, then you have a stronger negative or inverse relationship. So we would say as one variable increases, the other variable actually decreases. In this case, we would say the higher you go, the colder it becomes. So this is scientifically correct. But what we are saying, we're just relating this to say, so which means as one variable increases, the other variable decreases. Now, with this then, this scale, which we said it runs from 0 to 1, and also running from 0 to -1, towards 1 being positive, and also stronger relationship, towards -1 being inverse relationship, but stronger. Now, let us look at the data set that we used earlier on to illustrate how to go about correlation analysis. Now, here is our data. And in that data, we had the issue of gender, we had religion, efficacy, we also had peer pressure and teenage pregnancy. So we want to do association of variables. And this is good to know. You can do, you do mostly association of variables that are scale or have order, have an order. So you cannot do with variables that are nominal because it may not create that relationship. So how do we go about it? So now we want to find out the relationship between age and teenage pregnancy. Now, let us begin by just looking at graphically what would be the relationship in this data. So we go to graphs and we go to legacy dialog and we actually click scatter plot. And in this scatter dot or scatter plot, we select the variables that we want to see the association. So we select the simple scatter plot and we say define. So we pick there the first variable as the dependent variable teenage pregnancy. Then we take the X variable age. So we say, okay, and what is it that we see? So we see an output that shows on the horizontal age, and on the vertical we see teenage pregnancy. So we can see the distribution of the dots. in pretty a straight line, which means the association is actually quite high. But we cannot conclude with this. So we need to actually run a correlation analysis. So in order to do a correlation analysis, we go to analyze, and on analyze, we go to bivariate, and we select the variables that we want to find association. And in this case, for illustration, we want to select teenage pregnancy, and we want to select age. And we actually run a Pearson correlation. So we go down there, we say okay, and once you have said okay, we have an output of a table, and that table, on the row you find teenage pregnancy, and on the column we find age. So the Pearson correlation relating to age, where the two variables meet, is 0.968, which means this is closer to actually 1. And since it has no negative value, then this is actually positive. It's a direct relationship, and a very strong direct relationship. So we're saying the older you become, the higher the likelihood for you to be associated with teenage pregnancy. So that's the explanation. We can actually also run a correlation analysis of all the variables by just going to analyze and going to correlate variables. We say bivariate, and we select all the variables. So we already had teenage pregnancy. We have put the extent of being influenced, parental guidance. So we have put the other variables as well. And we have our output, and our output there shows, and it's good to point out there are some values that have a negative association. So for example, we have a variable extent of parental guidance and teenage pregnancy, which has a minus 0.172, which means it has an inverse relationship, though the relationship is still weak because it's closer to 0. We still have our variable teenage pregnancy and age, which has a 0.968. Okay. So this is how to read the correlation table. Now, what have we learned so far? We have learned that we can run a correlation analysis, and correlation analysis is about association, finding the association of variables, find out the relationship of these variables. And these variables can have an inverse relationship if the values we get have a minus sign. These variables can have a direct relationship, and they can have even a direct, strong relation, very strong relationship as they move towards 1 or as they move towards -1.